Hey, you're watching Half Asian Tarot Queen. My hair is it's kind of wild today. But this is the reading for November, and I did a giveaway for October, the Urban Tarot, and I'm recording this slightly before the end of the month, so I'm going to do the giveaway part at the end, because I'm just going to tack that on after the first. There's not very many entries. I think there was only like a couple entries, and I think at this point pretty much everybody, almost everybody who's entered has won something, so I'm thinking that I'm gonna stop doing the giveaways this month. I mean, it was fun and all, but I think everyone's won at this point, and I could make a bigger deal out of it, I suppose, if I was like trying to like start a tarot channel, but I'm really just doing this for fun because I'm a vegan cheesemaker, and I'm ultimately going to go back to that. So I don't really want to get into like promoting the channel and all this stuff because I'm just doing this for fun because I love tarot, and that's my story. So anyways, it was fun doing the giveaways, but I don't think I'm going to keep doing them because I think they've kind of run their course. I might start doing them again later at some point, but it's just, extra work and, all that. So, okay. All right. So, I just pulled a bunch of cards from the Urban Tarot. And then at the bottom of the deck, we have Dominion, which is interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna go through the cards, and so we got Futility, the Seducer. We have Sorrow, Death, Prudence, Interference, the Public Defender, and Satiety. So this is really interesting because the readings in the month of October were extremely dramatic. You can go back and look at them, but one of the big the overall reading for the month was like a new reality was bubbling up, and like one of the big themes that came through in a lot of the readings was all about this karmic reckoning that was happening, and like this truth. There's been this theme for the last several months of like this truth, like kind of changing the game, like coming up and like being like a paradigm shifter. But it first came out, I don't know, a few months ago, and then there was like all this like trying to oppress it and like in denial, and so it's just like, but it keeps coming up, and so it's like the shift is happening kind of slowly because there's a lot of denial around whatever this truth is. So the month of October, the readings were really dramatic. I mean, there's a lot of conflict and drama, and just change, and the dust wasn't really settling, and there were like different parties that were like in alignment with the truth versus different parties that were not. Like there was a reading a couple days ago that was like, I think it was called Purple Velvet Suit, where it was just talking about these polarities that were kind of being juggled over this truth, And so that's kind of how we went out with October. And at the end of the month, in the Hunter's Blue Moon, there was like this big climax, and there were all these different characters that were like sort of, it was like almost like this there were different people that were being exposed to this truth, and it was like impacting their lives in different ways, but it had reached this like sort of boiling point, you know, at the end of the month. So that's really interesting because, you know, we have for November, we have Dominion, you know, which this speaks to some sort of like, I mean, it kind of in a way like applies an oppressive situation or some sort of like hierarchy that's like oppressing, you know, which, I mean, would happen in a situation where there was like a reality that was built around something that wasn't true, you know. And so it almost, it kind of speaks to like being trapped in a toxic situation in a way. I mean, Dominion, like that's the inference, you know. But like in the traditional deck, it's like the two of wands, you know. So it's like a person who is sort of at this turning point, you know, and having to make a decision in the traditional deck. But this one implies like dominion, which it kind of infers some sort of bondage to me, you know, and having to make some sort of decision, you know, because it's just like, and then the first card we have is futility. So this is like the Seven of Swords in the traditional deck, which is like a card of like, really like, this is a card of deception, but also just like living in a false reality, you know, which is interesting because that would support this sort of situation, you know. So we have this false reality. And then, interesting, we have the seducer, which he came out in the Hunter Moon reading, and he was like this, you know, this ladies' man who had like gotten himself into trouble, and that was like coming to a climax at the end of the month, you know. And then we have like sorrow, and we have death, you know. So it's interesting because this character in the Hunter Moon reading was like, he had kind of like gotten involved with like one too many ladies, and he like ended up in the therapist's office, you know, in that reading. But like here, he's surrounded by like futility and sorrow and this like clinical card of like death. And this death card came out in the Purple Velvet Suit reading also. So like, it's really interesting how this played out, you know. So, I mean, to me, this is like 2 readings in a row where this guy is kind of hitting a wall. Like, he's going to have to change his ways. Like, because whatever he's been doing is, like, not working anymore. Like, he's not really fooling anyone, you know. Then, on the next row, we have Prudence. So, this is the 8 of Pentacles in the traditional deck. So this is like someone who's kind of like making a dedicated effort, working diligently towards some outcome, you know. And we have interference. We have the Queen of Wands, the Public Defender, and then we have satiety. So what's interesting is in the Purple Velvet Suit reading, which I think is like significant because it was talking about these 2 polarities that were being juggled, and there was like this truth, you know, and like one of them was going to like I mean, one of them was in alignment with the truth, you know, and that was becoming apparent. But it seems like in order to like move forward into this new way of being, like all of this darkness and these false realities are going to have to be like moved through, you know. So this month, even though there was like sort of like a victory over this false delusional reality, it seems like what I'm getting from this reading is that there's a lot of like darkness and heaviness that's going to have to be moved through to ultimately get to this change, which is good, you know. But like the road there looks really difficult, you know. We have this Public Defender, so there's some sort of like, you know, heartbreak and like loss that's going to have to happen in order to like acknowledge this moment and move on, you know. And this public defender is having to get involved. So this, you know, to me, it speaks to some sort of criminal situation, you know. And then we have this person who's like really working diligently towards some outcome, but like there's all this interference, you know, like they can't get there, you know, and so they're gonna need the help of this public defender in order to get to this outcome, you know. And then meanwhile, like, you know, right now, this diligent, hardworking person is trapped under this futility, like this deception, this false delusional reality. Like they're working hard, you know, but they've just got all this stuff piled on top of them that's not really right, you know. So it's just like, oh my gosh, this, even though it like this, it looks kind of good, it looks really like harsh too, you know. Like this person's gonna have to move through it looks like a bunch of nonsense to break out of this toxic, oppressive situation. And it's sort of like this turning point, but it's like always darkest before the dawn, you know, they always say that. And it's sort of just like, it kind of looks like that. Like this person is going to have to move through a bunch of just nonsense, you know. So, okay, so I'm going to now go to Golden Art Nouveau and pull some more. Well, actually, you know what? Before I do that, I might go to the Mystical Shaman. Actually, I'm going to lay out all these cards, and I'm going to shuffle them, lay them out, and I'll just be right back. Okay, so this is really interesting what came out. At the bottom of this Mystical Shaman, we got Taming the Wind, which is a card of co-creation with the universe or with God. And like, you know, you will be getting like signs and guidance on, you know, moving through this moment. But we got Fire, the Rattle, the Gatherer, and Sweat Lodge. So this sequence of cards really speaks to kind of the tale that I was just talking about. I mean, this is like a transformative moment. You know, with the fire, you talk about like the firebird or the phoenix that's like rising from the ashes. So there's like this old way, this oppressive situation that's going to have to be burned down, you know, in order to make way for this new beginning. So there's all this destruction, but then out of that destruction is this new beginning that's going to come out. There was a reading that happened pretty recently called London Bridge is Falling Down, and I think this card came out in there, and it was like there were two tower moments, and there was all this destruction and drama. But it's interesting because that fell on top of, you know, it fell on top of this person who is diligently working towards something and being oppressed by this futile, delusional situation. And then we got Fire on top of that. So I think that's pretty significant. Like that situation is going to be coming down, you know. But then we got the Rattle. So this is a card of like working with spirit or with God or with the universe, and being in alignment with the highest good, you know, and like putting your prayer out there and like trusting that the divine is going to resolve the issue, you know, in an appropriate manner. Like you have to be careful that you're like in alignment when you sort of, you know, align yourself. This is really powerful. Like if you are not in alignment with the truth or what's right, you know, like you can also bring a lot of destruction on yourself. So, you know, this is not to be taken lightly. But it's interesting because that fell on top of this situation where there's this interference, you know, so we're calling on help, you know, to like move through this. And it's funny because this Don Juan like charmer character seems to be part of this interference. So that's really interesting. And then we have the Gatherer. So this is really appropriate because we just moved through. The Harvest Moon was last month, and this is a card of abundance being all around you and things being in bloom and being able to harvest what you need when you need it, and being able to have faith that what you need you'll be able to find when you come through it. So it's just like this can be a very intimidating, overwhelming moment, and you might feel like very overwhelmed by all the destruction. But I think this is here to remind you that what you need is going to be there. So don't fret about it. Like, it's going to be okay. And then the last card we have is the Sweat Lodge. So this card speaks to like also a transformative moment and like a deep healing. Okay, sorry, I got interrupted, but I mean, this speaks to, you know, the Sweat Lodge. It's talking about like sweating out stuff that's no longer serving you, and like sort of having to like leave that in the past, you know. And it's just like, it speaks specifically to like shedding a toxic situation, which is interesting because, you know, like I was saying, this really speaks to sort of being oppressed by some sort of toxic situation, and this speaks to like the shedding of that situation. So that's really interesting. And then when I go down, and then I pulled some cards from Golden Art Nouveau to try and get a little bit more clarity, you know. And I got this Four of Wands, which is a card of hoarding, and a card of like being, it's really being blocked and not having faith in the universe to provide for you. And so you're just like hanging on to what you have, but you're like actually blocking the flow, you know, because abundance is about being open to the flow of things coming and going. And if you don't have faith and you've lost your connection, like you just kind of hang on to what's there, and it's like a scarcity mindset, which is interesting because that falls right on top of this futility, this deception, you know. Like, this person is not seeing all the abundance that is there. They can't see it. They're blocked from it. So they're creating this futile situation that's oppressing this person, which is the Queen of Pentacles fell on top of this. So this speaks to like maybe this Queen of Pentacles being the oppressed in this situation. But then interestingly, we have this Eight of Pentacles again, which is, you know, basically this same card. So this Eight of Pentacles fell on top of this interference. So I think that speaks to this maybe being the same person. Like, this person is encountering, what they're encountering is interference, you know, like they can't move forward. There's like a blockage, you know. This is like the Eight of Swords. And it's interesting because at the bottom of this deck, we also have the Eight of Swords. Lots of eights, you know, which speaks to like fear and anxiety, not being able to see the way forward because you're blocked, you know. So it's like this person is experiencing this interference. Like, that's a double message, like 2 in a row. But then above that, we have this Ace of Swords, like this truth coming out. And it's interesting because it falls on top of this charming seducer, you know, which it's like oftentimes when someone is living in this delusional reality or this self-deception, or, you know, I mean, that's kind of what they do to get by, you know. They have to like seduce people, you know, to their reality, you know, pull people into their reality. So like these charming people, you know, they might have like all these ladies on the side, but like they kind of like sell people on this fantasy, you know, and that's how they And that's how they get by, you know, but it's not like a long-term solution, because eventually, you know, the truth comes out, and then the world, that world comes crashing down, you know. So it's interesting, because clearly this person is being blocked by this false reality, you know, but the truth is coming out, and then that's leading to change, you know. This is a card of change, you know, like you're juggling all these things. This was a really big energy in the, I believe it was the purple velvet suit. Like, I think that's a really relevant reading to this reading. But it's just like, the dust hasn't settled, so we're still like juggling these different outcomes. But we have change, and we have like someone's wish coming true, but the cost of that is there's this heartbreak for someone, whoever, you know, was not in alignment with the truth, whoever was trying to peddle this false reality. Like, they're gonna hit the wall, like, clearly, you know. And then we have this public defender, you know. So it's like, this person, this Queen of Pentacles, diligent worker person, is going to have their wish come true, but they're going to have to fight for it, you know, because somebody else has built a whole reality on this, like, unstable perception, you know. And so then at the end we have death, and we have the King of Swords, you know. So this harsh truth coming down, like, it's clinical, like, there's no way around it. We can't avoid it anymore. Like, this, it just is what it is, and things are going to have to change, just clearly, you know. And then that's going to lead to this outcome and this renewed purpose, and this person finally being liberated from this interference and being allowed to, like, move forward. But it looks like not before having to, like, go through this intense process of shedding this very oppressive situation, you know. So this month looks like it's going to be actually pretty difficult, even though it's moving towards a positive outcome for whoever's in alignment with the truth. If you're not in alignment with the truth, it's going to be a really heartbreaking outcome. So I'm going to go to the Starseed Oracle and pick a final card for this reading, and then after the end of the month, I'll come back and do a little clip with whoever won the giveaway. Okay. All right, so we got jump in, Andromedan energy adventure, say yes to change. So yeah, you don't want to stay stuck. Like, this is the time to move ahead, like, and to move forward. And then we have messenger, serious energy, bringing harmony and balance. So yeah, things are going to change, and it might be painful, depending on what side of the coin you sit on. But for sure, there's just no avoiding this change. This change has been trying to come through for a while, and it's just like, it's gonna have to come through, you know. So okay, well, good luck with this, and we'll check in again with more readings. Hopefully December will be not quite as difficult and treacherous. Okay, so it's the first of the month. I've got the entries in this box. Shake it up. And we're going to pick the final winner. All right. Okay. So we got Mystic Oasis. I think the odds were pretty good of winning, so congrats, and I hope you like it as much as I do.